Welcome back, and now we're taking a look at the power sector, and we are interested in finding out why we're having so much blackouts. It seems it's almost much more than we've ever had before. But to discuss this with us in the studio this morning is the Honorable Minister for Power, Professor Chinedu Nebo. Great to have you here, sir.
It's my pleasure. Good morning, viewers.
Yes. The first question is, what has happened to the unbundled PHCN, the DISCOs, GENCOs, and TRANSCOs, and they don't seem to be dancing and delivering electricity to Nigeria?
Well, I can tell you that everything is on course. When something new happens, there's always teething problems. And it's these teething problems that we are trying to surmount. Part of the problem is that immediately the private sector jumped on the bandwagon. It wasn't too obvious to them the extent of the warfare we've been carrying out against vandalism. So the issue of very low generation...
I'm sorry to interject, Honorable Minister. The first question will be, when you mention vandalism, how much of the problem we're experiencing now is down to vandalism?
Well, first and foremost, we have a minimum of 1,000 megawatts lost due to the activities of vandals.
So how much are we generating now?
We're generating about 3,800 megawatts.
But there is an assumption that we're generating a lot less than that as compared to what we had
It's not true.
months ago.
What actually happened was there has been a series of blackouts occasioned by line faults, and those line faults were caused by system collapses. And when the system collapses, there is an entrained mechanism in the entire value chain of transmission to distribution to ensure that it does not go back to affect the generating turbines. So there must be a shutdown. And because of that, you will encounter this kind of difficulties. The good news, however, is that the work of these vandals is being checked. The National Security Advisor very thankfully called a meeting of the Nigerian Civil Defense Corps, the Army, and all the security operatives, and with the Ministry of Power, of course, and all the stakeholders. And then we marshaled out how to deal with this. Very recently, there has been a lot of activities, a lot of arrests, many convictions of those who have vandalized our entire value chain of power distribution and transmission. However, with regard to generation, we have hope. And the hope is that the very horrible dynamite blowouts of the power, gas pipeline on the western axis have all been fixed. The system is being tested now, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks there will be a significant reprieve, and that reprieve is going to give us all that we need in order to recover all the lost generation. And then, because of the expansion work that the gas master plan had already put in place, we are going to even have a little more generation because gas will be coming to some more power stations.
Before you go into that, how much did you say we're losing or we lost as a result of vandalism?
At least 1,000 megawatts was lost. 1,000 megawatts.
So,
and that is huge.
Where were we before we ended up with less than 1,000 megawatts?
No, that's
in
what
terms of power generation.
Yeah.
Yes, before
we were just around 4,000, a little over 4,000. Like in February, we hit more than 4,300 at a point in February. And then it dropped. It dropped. And the reason that I said we're losing is that because gas cannot even go to the newly commissioned power stations. If gas goes to the newly commissioned power stations, it's going to significantly improve the end power generated all totally. Okay. So we are hoping that in the next month or so, we are going to have generation that is much better, within a month, much better than we have ever had in the history of this country.
But from conversation with some of the GenCos, the generating companies,
Yes.
they are saying that they're not able to generate much more than ever before because they're using turbine, and the turbine are not delivering as much results as one would expect. This is what they are saying to us.
Well, you know, they probably, maybe you didn't quite appreciate what they were saying. What they are telling you is that they don't have enough gas.
They're not even talking about gas because they're saying that as far as gas is concerned, because Laura and I, when we started, we were talking about the fact that there are all kind of allegations that one, they don't have the fund, two, that they're not being given gas for one reason or the other. But before we talk about gas,
Yes.
whether it's available or not and why they're not getting it, let's look at the turbine that they're using. How much are they supposed to be able to generate? From what we gathered, some of them are only able to generate to about 20% capacity of what they have.
I don't think that is the truth about the entire picture. What is true about the picture is that they know exactly what they are inheriting, and the limitation for generation right now is essentially gas supply. It's just like a wind. If you give a wind enough gas today, it will generate 200 megawatts more than it is currently generating. The same goes for Olorun Shogo. The same goes for many of the other, you know. Look at Geregu 1, for instance. Geregu 1 should be generating over 450 megawatts. But because of this gas pipeline vandalization, they are not able to get enough gas to generate up to 150 megawatts. So that is painful, and it's a new power station. So it is not a matter of the turbines not being healthy. But again, one problem is that the government had expected that all these companies, both at the generation and the distribution aspects, had enough funds, but they were not overburdened by a heavy load of debt incurred in the purchase of these facilities. So unfortunately, many of them, and it was not thought ahead of time that it would happen, had borrowed a huge amount of money, making them stressed out financially. So even the little maintenance some of them are supposed to do, they're not really doing. And the expansion is also a problem. And that brings us to trying to gather so many financial institutions in the world to explain to them what we are passing through and see if we can get funding made available to them as private sector at very, very good interest rate. Yes.
Yeah. But